Nice.
Hello.
Back with Timi Orath, one and only, the queen with a sword, the slayer of the mountains, the travel through Sri Lanka and Spain and everywhere possible. Welcome, Timi. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I was just explaining to you before we jumped on this call that it's a bit of a heat wave. I'm based in the Canary Islands right now, which belong to Spain. So we are recording this in October, but it's super hot today. So it kind of feels like being in the middle of summer. But other than that, I'm feeling amazing. Thank you. How are you?
Same. The heat wave has been in Europe. I mean, I'm now located for the last years in Germany, so the summer was quite good. And as you said, late November or October is still quite warm, but you can feel slowly it's cooling down, and I'm getting a little bit icky to go somewhere warmer to the ocean. So I'm a bit jealous. Every time I talk to you, you remind me of the summer vibes, never ending positive mood in Spain. So that's good.
Good.
What about your business? How have you been progressing? What are the plan? What's the vision? I know we were touching upon it now a little bit, and that's why I think also for our listeners and viewers to hear a little bit what you've been up to, because I think with your impact, and I mean I've been following you on LinkedIn as well when we were chatting, and I know you have quite ambitious vision also for what you are doing. It's always nice how you talk about it.
Always try to have ambitious visions. I think that's that's one thing that keeps people moving forward and not feel bored or useless to society. Having clear, ambitious goals and long term visions in mind. So I've been working on pivoting my business. I'm a business mentor for individuals or small businesses, and right now, up until this point, I've been focusing more on the spiritual community. So I was working with people like coaches, healers, and things like that, spiritual educators. And now I'm pivoting to more of a B2B setup, which means I'm going to be approaching companies within the social impact sector. So companies that are making a super positive impact out there. So that hasn't changed. And I think this is really important for people to understand that as you are evolving as a person, maybe you're a leader or an entrepreneur, your vision is going to change. So that's what happened to me basically. In the last 3 years, I feel like I've outgrown the initial vision, which is perfectly fine. So that's the phase I'm in right now. I'm also adapting that growth within my own business as well, so I can pivot to a different audience, but still do the same sort of value driven approach what I was doing up until this point, was just a different how and serving a different audience. And that's where I'm at right now, building these cool things, mapping out the processes and mapping out the products, the solutions, and everything that comes with building a new division basically within your own business. So not been a boring phase for me at all. But at the same time, I also reduced the number of clients that I take on, and I have been pushing my digital services and my sort of off the shelf products that don't require my one-on-one time. And that's a great way for everyone to minimize their own time they spend within their business. So if you guys have an option to do that, I wholeheartedly can recommend to build some sort of extra revenue channels for you that can generate you income when you're not actively looking to get new clients. And that's kind of what I've been doing this summer, minimizing the number of clients and still generating the same, if more, revenue. So overall, good last few months. I can't complain.
Sounds almost too ideal. So maybe before we get to today's topic, as for our viewers and listeners, we started this series with Timmy about self-leadership as well. And today we're gonna talk a little bit about, stay tuned, team leadership and one particular trait that is very important, or two. But Timmy, tell me maybe one or two or three, whatever you like, struggles that you really recently went through, and how did you solve them? Because it sounds very rosy the way you describe it, but I
Now
know
it is.
you're slaying dragons, you're out there, hands dirty, and building the lifestyle a lot of people dream about. And being an entrepreneur, like I know you're a giver, you want to make an impact. So I'm not really surprised with your ambition and where you're going. But maybe if you can divert a little bit, and how do you go about overcoming such challenges, as being an entrepreneur you have every day something.
Yeah, that definitely hasn't been always rosy, and you're catching me in a really good phase. That's what's happening, and that's why your listeners and your readers can hear these amazing news. But if you had this chat with me maybe 6 months ago, it would have been a completely different response. I was in the middle of a bit of a low down and questioning what do I want to do with my business, because that's when it really hit me that I felt that I have outgrown it and I didn't want to ditch it. I didn't want to just turn my back on it. I've poured so much effort, my heart, my soul, my energy, my money into it, and it is working and it is serving people. But internally, I had a bit of a frustration. I wasn't feeling as happy I was maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I started it. And I knew that it wasn't because I didn't love my clients or my target niche or my business itself or my solutions. I loved still doing what I was doing. It just wasn't fulfilling me as much as it was at the beginning, because that initial high kind of wore off. That's basically what it was. And that's one of the things. Plus, I was working a lot because my partner had a very serious injury about a year ago and he's been out of work since. So that means I also had to really focus my efforts and time on not just on caring for him. I had to even physically care for him at the beginning, but at the same time to provide for both of us. And as an entrepreneur, there's always a bit of a stressful, or that could be, not always, but it could be a stressful period when you are focusing on getting your clients because you have to get those clients. It's not because you really want to call in your clients, but at the back of your mind, you have this little voice that is pressuring you and tell you that if we don't have enough clients, there's two of us on the line. Okay, we need to provide for two of us. There are so many things to be doing. I want to be saving, I want to be doing this and paying for his medical sort of needs and stuff like that. So a lot of things can go into it, and because of that I was really working crazy. Like, I was pushing myself and I was taking on probably more clients than I initially planned to take on, which was great for the revenue growth in my business. It was also great for my clients because I could serve more people. And when I'm actually with a client, I'm fully focused on them. I switch off all of my notifications. I never get interrupted with them, so they really get the best of our time together. But for me, what it did emotionally and mentally and physically, it started to wear off of me, and I was heading towards another burnout, and now I had two major ones already. So now I can recognize the signs a lot quicker. So I could start sensing those little clues. And for me personally, those clues are usually that emotional numbness, when you just don't have any emotions coming out of you anymore. And it's a weird thing to experience, and it's even weird to explain. Even when you are super happy and something great happens, you don't feel that buzz, you don't feel that elevated joy. And it's true for the sad things as well. If something really sad happens, you're just like meh. So when that was happening to me at the time, I was like, okay, something is not right. Let's take a step back. And I took a couple of proper days off, and I didn't do any work. I just spent those 2 days completely on me, and I started reflecting, like, where is this coming from? What is it that I'm doing that is making me feel this way? Meaning no feelings at all. Okay. And that's when I realized that I was really overworking myself. I was putting everyone else's needs, my business, my partner, my clients, above my own personal needs. And as an entrepreneur, I think that's one of the biggest risks that you can have in your business, that you want your business to thrive, you want your team to develop, you want your clients to be happy, and you sometimes end up putting your own self at the bottom of the needs list, basically. So don't do that. Try not to do that, please, because if you are not okay mentally, emotionally, physically, there's nothing that you can then do to give to your business, to give to your clients and to your employees. So that was, I think, the biggest sort of struggle or challenge, more like, I had to overcome in the last few months. And funny enough, the way I changed things around is by reducing the number of clients that I was taking on and increasing my revenue streams from other channels, which meant the passive revenue stream I talked about earlier. So I shifted my focus on promoting those products more versus promoting my one-on-one services. And slowly, I'm working on sort of shifting the scales. So right now it's still the one-on-one clients that bring the biggest chunk of my revenue, but the difference is getting closer and closer. So that's where I'm heading to reduce the one-on-one client revenue and increase the passive revenues for me, which are coming from my digital products, and everything is automated on that front. So these can be a little bit difficult sometimes to recognize, first of all, what's happening with you and what's happening in your business, and then come up with an action plan. Now that I know what's wrong, how am I going to fix it? What are the exact steps I'm going to take to make sure I can achieve that ambitious vision that we have? And what is that vision? Even that, having that clarity.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I've been doing crazy notes here, and just for you guys to have a little bit, you know, how to say, a little action plan for yourself, because I like to capture kind of the thoughts that you always come up with. And I know you're a very action oriented person, and you probably are a little bit like myself, not very patient with everything. So it can get very annoying when you don't see results. But you touched upon multiple things we could really dive into. But what I really love is how proactive you are, and how also you're trying always to find what works for you.
Mm.
Because if you go out there in the market, there is so much noise. One person tells you, hey, do digital products. Another say, start here with one-on-ones. And you followed your path. And I know you probably tried a lot of this. And this is why you figure out, okay, my spiritual business now has hit a certain plateau with me where I feel I'm evolving beyond that and I want to do way more impact. So it's beautiful to see that you're trying to transition a little bit from one side to another. But I can imagine it was more like this rather than just like how it sounds. Oh, now I'm smoothly transitioning because it's be
It's
a
not a smooth transition. No, now it is smooth because now I'm clear about the direction. But when I was in the middle of the whole sort of, it was like a bit of an existential crisis for my business, not for me personally, but that's how it felt. That when you are like, what's happening and where do we go from here? But one thing, and that's a cool practical tip to give you guys, basically, one thing that helped me even figure out what I wanted to do or where I wanted to pivot is that I went on LinkedIn and I sort of put on that hat, like if I was an employee, what kind of jobs I would be applying for, because I was thinking that if I had that mindset again, it makes the decision making process a little bit easier to take the pressure off of me that I'm building another business. Like, no, I'm just pivoting my business. And if you are applying for jobs, it's kind of the same process, like figuring out your new, market, your new niche. So that's what I kind of did. I started looking into, just to get some inspiration. I was like, what sort of companies are out there? What kind of companies would I like to work with, not work for? But I went through the actual job listings on LinkedIn and I identified what sort of resource gaps there are already on the market at my level, at this sort of C-suite or director, senior management level. And it started shaping up for me. And I came across these cool companies within the social impact sector, companies within green tech, or companies for just fighting for social justice. And as I was reading about those companies, I got that fire back. I got that excitement back. I was like, oh, I could so enjoy doing a project with a company that is creating social justice, that is helping end poverty, that is helping, I don't know, kids, I don't know, getting the right education and things like that. And that's when it hit me that all I need to do is just up my own game a little bit and collaborate with these kind of companies versus the individuals. And I love all of my clients up until this point, don't get me wrong. And I'm probably still gonna get a few of them moving forward from this sector, but it's just a different output, a different impact. Because right now I'm working mainly with very small companies, but or mostly solo entrepreneurs, versus working with teams is different. I have a couple of clients now that are teams, but you see the level of your impact is different because you are immediately influencing more than one person with your advice, with your consultation, with your mentoring, with your tips. So that's something that you can try. If any of you out there are not sure what sort of business do I want to start or what sort of change do I want to make, just start reading through the job listings, and then without the pressure of having to apply for it. I didn't apply to any of those jobs. Obviously, that's not a job I was looking for, but I was looking at projects, I looked at opportunities, and I did reach out to some of those companies to say, hey, I saw that you are looking for this and this kind of person. Would you consider a consulting opportunity instead? So it's a good way of building a bit of B2B there, or build those relationships, and you never know what it's going to bring you. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, because we live, as I call it, in turbulent times, which means often we need to really go back to our drawing board. And I call this the gaining perspective, gaining awareness. And this always fact checking with yourself. Where am I at? Am I actually, what got me here? Will it get me to the next stage? And how will I go there? And LinkedIn, I mean,
Mm.
is one of the biggest. I just read about it yesterday. I think they have like maybe 900 million users or something like that, and obviously acquired by
Oh,
Microsoft. So it's a huge domino, and a lot of people are hanging out there. A lot of companies are trying to communicate about their social impact, and we all know and we see it now. Obviously, global warming, and it's real, and we need to be present. And it's beautiful for me to also see that you're trying to really go in that direction, and I think it's exciting. Also, you touched upon a lot of these topics that excite me as well individually, which is change, and kind of
mm.
helping people to get more authentic with themselves and finding their authentic self. And I know that's one thing I to the core admire about you, because you're really trying to be yourself. You can get frustrated, you can get emotional, and you are really this, as I call it, the princess with a sword, a queen with a sword. You really go there, and in your own way. If you don't feel it, you don't do it, but you're yet trying to stay pragmatic in following your own journey. And this is kind of what always stands out with me, with you, because I know that another friend that I know, she's a cosplay influencer, quite a big one. And she's been, when I actually interviewed her once and asked, hey, can you tell me actually what made you so successful? She said, you want to really know that? For 6 years or seven, I haven't earned a thing. And and then really, I remember I was once at her home back then, and she was crafting all those different kind of, outfits, and at home on her and living with her parents. And then also once, I think a couple times, I attended her live feed on Instagram, and she was there all the time interacting with everybody. She knew everybody. And so I also just want to say that, being an entrepreneur is really take a lot of hard work. But yet I know that you are really trying to find your way, and sometimes we make it more complicated than it is. So
Sure.
I just want to also obviously a little bit divert towards one of the things why we came here today, which is the big topic. And Timmy, maybe you want to say what's today's topic about? Let me just share it here.
So excited.
Let me share it with you guys. So today's topic actually is gonna be about emotional intelligence. We want to talk about empathy, and I know, as I said, we've done these series in the past about self leadership, where you might remember these 18 principles or whatsoever. I think they were about that number. But today we want to talk about empathy. And I know that empathy is a big thing for many people in different, it means different thing, different to different people. The other day I was doing actually a YouTube video and just experimenting to improve my craft. And I actually shot one video about emotional intelligence, and I had quite some feedback. And some of you were asking, hey, can you shoot more and talk about it? And funny enough, today discussing what we want to talk about, Timmy actually came up with this idea, so that, hey, this topic is actually very important when it comes down to teams, when it comes down to, operating as a leader on a top level, as a high performer. So Timmy, maybe I just give you the floor, because I know this is a huge topic for many businesses. Maybe you work with, and now also considering what you just described with the vision you're moving towards, these type of companies who actually need to, in my opinion, because I'm still with one foot in a corporate, and I know this is a huge topic that many companies are missing. Being empathetic, how you balance the team dynamics, how you hire people, what type of, how do you run the team. And I know you have heaps of experience because you've built different type of teams, and this is a huge topic. So maybe I give you the kind of, I gave you a lot of bullets for the ammunition, so just take it wherever you see fit.
Thank you. I'm just gonna take the entire floor then, as you so generously offered it to me. No, I was saying that as you introduce the topic, I'm just so excited about talking about something so important. And this is definitely an angle that, in my view, gets overlooked very often when it comes to, how do you manage yourself as a leader? How do you manage people around you? How do you recruit? And just understanding the team dynamics in general when you are part of a team. Doesn't matter where you are sitting on that team, on the hierarchy sort of perspective, but emotional intelligence specifically, and mark my words, this is going to be on the rise. A few years ago, we started talking about, all about being conscious or the coaching leadership style, etc. That became super trendy. Initially, people were like, no, that's not how you lead. Same thing is going to happen with emotional intelligence, especially because the sort of younger generation, the Generation Z and the millennials, which is us, still there, plus the younger guys coming after us, the Gen Z, we are very different workforce, especially Generation Z, and they are already like taking up a big chunk of the workforce, and within the next 5 to 10 years they're going to make the core of the active workforce. So you cannot even expect yourself to manage different generations with the same approach if you're not able to emotionally understand how to manage them or what's important for them. Because maybe for some people the only important thing at work is to get the promotion, get the recognition, get the bonuses, and then I go home and that's it. But for a lot of people, especially these two generations that I'm talking about, it's a lot more important to know how is my working, or how are my working hours making a positive contribution within the team, within the company, within the industry, within the communities, within the world. People want to do something meaningful. People now really care about doing something more meaningful. Doesn't matter how simple your job title is. You could be working at McDonald's serving clients, but you want to feel like that I'm doing something meaningful. You want to feel like I contributed to that person's day. I served them with a genuine smile instead of a hi, good day. So it doesn't matter where you are. You could be a CEO of a gigantic tech firm, and you want to know that your company is making a positive impact within the industry, or you are the one making a positive impact on your team's lives. So that's the key difference, I think, that it really gets overlooked nowadays. And I've had, unfortunately, a lot of negative experiences during my time within my corporate career, and even when I was in the different sort of projects, that people can really ignore to try to understand your needs, your communication needs, your learning needs, your motivational needs. And that all comes down to emotional intelligence and being able to empathize with that person, the person that you want to motivate, the person you want to hire, the person you want to fire. That's very important as well. Maybe you have to downsize your team and you have 5 very different characters on your team who are not going to handle the letting go process the same way. But if you go in and do the exact same process, it's not going to do good for you. And maybe you're saying, like, oh, who cares? It's my business. I can't be nice to people. Of course, I get that. But just imagine how you are ending that relationship with a potential employee. Once they go out of your company, they're going to start talking about you. What do you want them to say about you? Do you want them to say about you that you treated them horribly and this is a really bad company, and the word is going to get out there? Maybe it's going to go on social media, maybe it's going to go on TikTok, and you're going to go viral for the wrong reasons. And you end up losing customers, your brand is going to have a bad reputation, etc. Or you decided to have a bit of an empathy and you realize that, okay, this person is a little bit maybe introverted. I can't just blurt out all this information and put them on the spot. I need to maybe have a different approach, a different way to communicate this decision. You deliver it in a way that is humane, that is authentic, that is also empowering in some way or another. I know redundancy is not always empowering at first, but there's always a positive side to it. That person walks away and starts talking about good things about your leadership, good things about the company itself. Maybe you negotiated a good redundancy package for your team members. So they go out there and still recommend your services or your products to their friends, to their network, etc. That's a big difference. And then people who are not able to see the long term impact of how it can tremendously benefit you when you are using emotional intelligence in your day-to-day tasks, either as a leader, either as someone junior, maybe you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. Use emotional intelligence and skill yourself on emotional intelligence the same way you had to learn certain skills. Maybe you had to learn how to communicate, you had to learn how to negotiate, how to sell. You learned that. You were not born with all of these skills. You were good at one or the other, but the rest of them you had to learn. Same thing goes for emotional intelligence. Educate yourself. There are a lot of amazing topics out there now, and anything can be learned now for free. Go on YouTube, start browsing on Google. There's so much information available for free. So that's where I would probably start. I would look at already the business processes. Are we actively using empathy and emotional intelligence? Do we even know what that is? Do we even know how to use that? In your opinion, like where do you think, Matteo, it would be important to use emotional intelligence? I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah, very, very good point. On and thank you as a first for all the explanation. And I like how you touched on different topics, different generations, different workforce, and different situations you need to apply emotional intelligence. In my opinion, I mean, there are different situations how to apply emotional intelligence. I think one of the important thing is in your home turf. So where you at, like you said, you got to be a learner. So in our private lives, in our families, I think this is where we start, right? We often get some examples from our parents, whether you see how they behave, to each other. And I think I don't want to go too deep in this topic, but I feel like this is why a lot of people probably never learned or learned a bad example of emotional intelligence. If you've seen your parents fighting and picking at each other and being bitter, then perhaps that's your approach. And I mentioned it before, what got us here will not get us to the next stage. And I feel this is the big thing, especially like you said, with the new force and the generations that and all these people who come on social media. The danger, like my, little brother, is that you grew up with YouTube. I don't know when you got your first phone. I was probably about 17, 18, but I remember my little brother, and since maybe he was 10 or 9 or 8, he already had a phone. And the thing is, this whole social comparison, it's way bigger topic, I feel, than in the millennials and people who are about 40 and further, because you obviously missing this piece. Why should I care? When, although you mentioned, a lot of these companies and guys and gals on TikTok, they actually see it really important to care. But my best guess and feeling is that it's because they have to do it, not because they want to do it. And I feel like and it's really funny that you touched upon the generations, because I feel like where you and me come from, I still remember when I was small playing in a forest. Although I had my first, Pentium 1 and gaming a little bit here and there, I grew
Super Mario.
yeah, exactly. I grew up with socially outside, but the problem nowadays is that this emotional intelligence that you need to build teams, that you need to manage effectively, often people just completely neglect or never really learn properly, because we live in this individualistic, as I call it, a curse of the West society, where people actually are more focused on themselves than to really make an impact. And if they already want to make an impact, it's just an obligation, and because everybody else around them do that, and not because they actually really believe in it. And I hope you guys feel this difference, because with you, this is why I wanted to understand the differences, why you're moving from one stage to another. But I know you already, I'm fortunate, know you for whatever now, maybe 7 years whatsoever, more
Something
and
like that.
more. And I know that you always try to do things because you are more mature, and your life wasn't easy at all. You're born, you're expat, you moved through different countries, but a lot of people are now empowered through the wealth we live in, the the affluence, and where they grow up with, maybe too little to do and too little hardships, and they feel like, oh, I need to be millionaire now, I need to be this, I need to be that, but they forget that this emotional peace is really the key. So this is the first, and I got a little bit on a rumble here. So I think people need to figure that out first. So if you, like, you gave little practical tips, I would encourage you to do something hard. Maybe in a sense, maybe start pursuing your passion. Maybe that's been like Timmy for you to explore if your business knowledge can be applied to some particular niche. Start listening, start talking to people and start trying to be helpful rather than, being in your own with yourself, and try to step out of your comfort zone and say, okay, what would it mean that I connect with people and try to actually be interested rather than being interesting. So
Mm.
this is a huge topic, and then start really thinking about where you want to be in the next 3, 5, 10 years. I feel this is also the piece I want to give you guys, that for the new generation, perhaps for you and me, it's a little bit different because I'm thinking generally like you, vision first, impact second, and then really mission third. So I'm kind of taking it in this order. I'm thinking long term, as I call it, a way of the turtle. So one step at a time. But I feel this younger generation, they just like go out there. I look today on the street and I see how people dress. I'm like, am I old? And, and just like everybody.
Back in my
Yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah. But it's just so mind blowing for me sometimes because I really feel like you said the emotional intelligence need to be more brought to the mainstream, because especially if it comes to corporations, like where I'm still like from my experience, you can be really horrified from, you have obviously the older generation that also have completely different understanding how to manage teams, because it's all, I tell you, you do it, and if you don't, I will micromanage you. No, that's not how you manage people. And then you have the new, then you have us in between who kind of prioritize personal freedom. People who want, actually, if you micromanage, if somebody micromanages you, like, hey, I'm out. This is not how it works. And then you have the
Yeah.
generation in between who actually want to do as little as possible and get everything for free. So this is, again, I took it a little bit broader, but I just wanted to step a little bit further above because I feel we need to have this perspective and realize, okay, where do you have in your life the pain point that you actually don't really believe that emotional intelligence is the way to go to build relationship, not to only improve your family but improve the team? Do you know yourself? And a lot of the things you mentioned before about self knowledge, am I actually working too much? Is workaholism a a little crutch for me because it's all about ego, it's all about sustaining something that actually is not sustainable. So
Absolutely. And I was going to say one thing around this topic that you mentioned with the going back to the generational differences. And if you are a leader or if you have your own company and you have maybe a different or not even a different but a diverse workforce or a diverse audience base, meaning that you're not targeting just the boomers, okay, or just the millennials, but you're getting clients and employees from across all of these different generations. Just remember how big it became on social media, the whole concept of quiet quitting. And if you haven't heard about it, you probably live under a rock. And that is trending, and other terms are trending as well. And they are getting the traction, they are being popularized, and it's a good thing, maybe. As a business owner, I should say the opposite, but no, these kids are right. And I'm sorry for calling you kids if you fall in that category, but I kind of can do it now. So it's all good. But yeah, they are onto something, and I kind of wish that we had this movement at our time as well. Instead, what we did, our generation started glorifying the hustle and grind. Like, you have to work hard, you have to wake up early, and
yeah,
like don't feel your
yeah,
emotions and just work, work, work. And we had this chat before, you and I. Like, I was caught up in that game as well because it was cool. It was cool to work 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and really just don't do anything but constantly work and work on yourself and work. So I think what's happening now is a big shift. And if people who are not emotionally intelligent enough to recognize this, they're going to have an impact, a negative impact on their sort of customer base and also on their workforce, because such trends, the lazy, what's the other one called now, That's another trend. I can't remember the name now. It's similar like the quiet quitting when you just do the bare minimum,
The
basically.
shouting, leaving the door, smashing the door,
Yeah,
quitting. I'm,
there's a
I'm
lot of
out of here. Goodbye. And send me a fat package. Thank you.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff happening out there, and I actually follow a lot of creators online, even though like this is not the kind of content relevant for me, but I love their creativity and I love how they are portraying so relatable content in the workplace. When your manager is overworking you, when you get a last minute meeting request at 4:30 on a Friday, when you know that your workday finishes at 5. So the things are shifting, and as I said, people need to be emotionally intelligent, A, to recognize how things are shifting and how the sort of requirements and expectations are now a lot different, and B, to truly be able to serve not just your team, but your audience, your customer base as well. Their needs are also shifting. And I mentioned this a little while ago. Maybe I mentioned this in our previous series, I think, that maybe 50 or even not even that far back, but 20 years ago, people made a decision when they purchased something mainly based on the price. Price, value, price, value. That was usually the only deciding factor for someone. How much is it? Is it cheaper than the other one? Which Coke I'm going to get, the red one or the blue one, depending on whatever. But over time, things really have changed, and we started going more for the quality of things versus the price point. So there are still some people out there who would make a decision purely on the price, but most of us now want to choose a better quality for a higher price point, and we're happy to pay the higher price point. But quality is now a lot more important than just the price alone. And now the third major sort of shift that is happening within that sort of purchase intent process that is happening is they also want to know, like, where is my money going? If I have two companies that sell the same product or the same service, same price, same product, two different companies. One company is treating their employees better. One company is famously known for helping communities, doing good out there, and being honest with their customers. The other one doesn't give a shit, and excuse my language. Which one do you think I'm going to buy from?
It's right. So I
Right?
guess you want
So
no.
that's
No.
yeah, like the bad one. No, 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 no. But these are things that are impacting not just how you manage your teams, but how you manage businesses, how you are holding on to your market share, or how you are losing out of the market purely because if you are ignoring these things that our world is changing, you need to bring in empathy, you need to bring in your emotional intelligence into your business activities and how you manage your teams and your customers. If you're not doing that, in the long term, I'm not going to say your business is going to fail, but you're probably going to end up losing some market share and you're going to have a few angry customers, which then leads to bad brand reputation. So now I think is a time to start focusing on how can I up my skill set, not just mine, maybe the teams as well. Maybe I need to look at my management team. Maybe I need to look at my recruiting team to make sure that they know how to recruit the right kind of people that would fit within this company culture, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it absolutely does, because when you think about, the overall impact, going back to that, there's I don't think much has changed over the years in terms of, empathy, values, and all these, just being kind and decent human being. But I feel like overall, with the rise of social media and the world's smartest engineers creating this great addictive algorithm, that's the right word I was looking for, is, people, we live in this culture where people click and scroll, and hours go by, and on a monthly basis they just lose themselves to something
Hmm.
which might be, from technical perspective, very amazing, because if you come back to your Instagram feed, TikTok, it shows you exactly where you left off, maybe in terms of the right products. I'm looking for at babies, I'm looking at dogs, and then my feed changes. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But people now, I think, lose a little bit there, really, in being in touch with themselves. And when it comes down to what you said, with customers, brands, and the impact you want to do there, you want to be really clear on all of this and bringing this social skills, maybe you could call it. And I want to a little bit ask you about this, because I believe, empathy is this little, I wouldn't call it buzzword, but people kind of like, oh, empathy, okay, I got to be nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
was
not
just
it.
thinking about, like, you describe these two companies. I really like the example, because that's, and I reckon same company, same product, but two different approaches. The one with this kind, empathetic approach, probably gonna have raving customers coming back for more, compared to those who treat like, you don't respond on time, you don't give extra value, you don't give extra gifts, you don't really care about, you say, well, sorry, you don't get your money back. All these different things, we are very sensitive to it in our consumer society. So how do you think social skills, and then you could think about, maybe decision making, you could think about handling stress or managing stress, handling conflicts, all of these things, how do they impact actually their teams as well?
Majorly, absolutely majorly, because remember that what a leader does, a team will copy subconsciously. So it happens, okay? It always happens. Whatever behavior you are or actions you are portraying as a leader, your team will copy you. Either if it is a good behavior or bad behavior. If it's a bad behavior, your team will think, okay, that's fine. We can get away with it because he's also doing it or she's also doing it. But if it is a good thing, you are setting yourself as a role model for the team. So they're going to copy your good behaviors. Means you have integrity, you have empathy, you pay attention to people, you match their communication style, and that's something that will carry forward into the rest of the teams. And if your team replicates your behavior, then whoever that team reports to, and it keeps going down, and then it will get passed on to the customers. So that's what happens. So even if you think that, oh, I'm just having a bad day, I don't care, it has an impact. It goes all the way down to your customers, because you're having a bad day, you're snapping at your, I don't know, your team leader, and then that team leader goes back to the team to have the daily huddle, and they're going to get grumpy, the team is not going to be motivated, and it escalates. It really does. So this is where empathy comes into the play, and emotional intelligence. You're allowed to have a bad day. That's not what I'm saying, that don't have a bad day, feel positive every day. Impossible. No. But if you have a bad day, have that level of emotional intelligence to communicate that with the rest of your team. Give them the heads up and tell them, like, hey guys, don't take things personal. I'm a little bit grumpy. I didn't sleep well. I don't know, maybe you have a kid who was up all night and you are completely exhausted. Maybe you have a dog who kept you up all night. I don't know. But communicate it. And that comes down to emotional intelligence, that I am aware of my own behavior. I'm aware of my own emotional state today. And I know that my my team or my customers might not. Okay. I've had a client session when I felt super low energy because I had a lot happening to me emotionally, especially when I was telling you earlier at the beginning of this chat that my partner was going through a lot of stuff and it was having an emotional impact on me. So I had the client session booked in a 2 hour strategy session with a team, and I couldn't cancel it. It was the last minute thing. I still went on to the call. I gave them the heads up. I told them, look, guys, I'm terribly sorry. I'm feeling a little bit all over the place. I'm still here. Let's do this. However, if you are okay with it, I would rather reschedule, because I know that I'm not going to be able to give you that level of service that I normally do, because I'm not feeling well in my mind. I'm not feeling well emotionally. Guess what they did? Of course, they wanted to reschedule without a problem. They were really supportive. This is an extreme example, but I really wanted to give you something very specific, because you would be surprised how much you can achieve just by clearly communicating what's going through your mind, without the BS, without the sleaziness, just telling people as it is in a way that is not going to offend them. And that's a big thing as well nowadays. Like, everyone is getting offended, and there are a lot of jokes around it as
Yeah,
well.
it's a huge topic.
Yes.
Good one.
Yeah, it is a thing. Different generations, different norms, and of course people are going to get maybe offended for different things than maybe someone who's in their 60s, because for them that was the norm, and then for someone who's in their 20s, they're going to think like, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. Both of them are right, okay? What comes down to you is, how do I communicate to which audience? Know your audience. What can I say to them? How can I say things to them that A, my message is going to get across, and B, I'm not going to hurt them or offend them or upset them. Nobody is out there wanting to upset people on purpose. At least I hope. I'm sure there may be some people, but as a leader, as a business owner, that's not your biggest priority in your mind. You don't want to go out and upset your teams. You don't want to go out and upset your customers. What you are trying to do is getting them to become more efficient or productive, but you're failing to meet their communication needs. Why? Because you are lacking that empathy. You're lacking that emotional intelligence, and you need to be able to put yourself into someone else's shoes before you speak, and that takes a fraction of a second. And it's something is that you can easily learn. Takes practice, yes. Can you then easily learn it? Yes. But you need to start doing it. And that's another good example for you that anyone can start practicing today. Next time when you feel a bit of an anger bubbling up in you, either at work or at home, doesn't matter, before you slash and snap at at the person next to you, just for 3 seconds, think that thought through your mind and try to hear it from the other person's perspective before you say it. Those 3 seconds are going to save you a lot in the long term, because you're not going to end up saying something that you didn't really mean, or you're not going to say something that you're going to regret, or you're not going to say something that will hurt the other person. Same thing in the work setting. As a manager, I've got another sort of a negative experience and an example to share with you that I was working with a big bank back in the UK, and it was a small team. And I think I mentioned this lovely manager at the time. We were the first team he's ever had. He never had the right management training, never had communication training. Our team leader had to go, so he was kind of, it was like an interim team leader. He should have never become our manager because he was not the he's not the people person, let's put it that way. So it's kind of not his fault. It was his manager's fault that they gave him this role that he was so not suitable for. What happened is that my grandmother passed and I had to fly home to Hungary for the funeral. Of course, I was in pieces emotionally, and I had to catch a flight on a Friday afternoon, and I had to leave early. I have to leave work early on that Friday, which I told them up front that I'm going to be leaving 2 hours early because I'm going to the airport. I'm going home to Hungary for my grandmother's funeral. And this emergency report request came in on that Friday afternoon, of course. And I said no. I told my manager, like, I'm not going to do it. I'm packing my things up. I'm going. And he started yelling at me in front of everyone. Not joking. It was an open office, a good 200 people, shouting at me that I cannot get up and leave. I have to do this report. If I don't do this report, I'm going to get fired. And I got up and left, and I started looking for new jobs after that. So these, this is what happens. And this is a good example to show you the lack of empathy. And it was such an obvious thing for someone to understand. And this is empathy in that traditional meaning. Okay, someone died. This person is going through a lot of time. She still came into work, did her work. All she's doing is leaving 2 hours early because she has to go to the airport to go to the funeral. Okay, so I wasn't asking for something extraordinary. And this person failed to recognize my emotional state as a reliable employee. And this one little incident that happened maybe 10 years ago, I still remember it. Okay. Probably he still remembers it because he feels bad about what he did. But he didn't have that emotional intelligence to deal with it. He did not have the empathy to deal with it. In the long term, it led me to really hating the company, hating the job, hating everything, my work, what I was doing. And up until that point, I loved it. I learned a lot there. But that one little moment, that one bad manager just killed it for me. And this is how you end up losing one of your best people on your team if you are not being empathetic, if you're not being emotionally intelligent enough to understand what they're going through, to understand what they need, and how you can motivate them and push them in a way that's in alignment with who they are and what they need.
Yeah, thank you for the example. I mean, this is really an extreme one, and kind of like you said, it's the standard, which requires normal understanding and human decency, and say, hey, I actually lost my grandmother and I go home earlier. It's really sorry to hear that, but It's and this is what also shows how you said, the way we treat others, the way we treat ourselves, it has a big impact. So I mean, I have my fair share of experience going in, in companies through similar situations, and where people actually come up to you, like you said at the start, with really trivial things, and get wrapped up in some things that completely are nonsense. And you have to respect it, you have to be, honest and open. But thinking long term about yourself being a team lead or a director, whoever you are, or a managing director, and how you're creating the culture is such a huge topic. And it's, thanks God you're the girl you are, and the lady with the sword who actually picks the bits and pieces, and says, I'm gonna make an impact because this doesn't work for me, and I'm gonna, you molded yourself into the awesome person you are today. But unfortunately, many people actually get buried under this, and their life might go like your life is like, hey, you know what, this is it, I'm quitting. And some people will put up with this, and this abuse, and this emotional and verbal dis-ease will actually cause them not to be true to themselves, to lie to themselves, to be people pleaser, and all these basic things that actually we need to step outside ourselves and build a life we want. So I definitely think this is a huge topic for us to decide how we want to be treated, but how we want to treat others. And it's a quite easy thing. I have a book for you. I just want to share here real quick that I mentioned probably a couple times in the past, Give and Take, from Adam Grant. And it's an amazing book on the three type of people. You have the givers, you have the takers, and you have the matchers. And they compare, or Adam Grant compares basically these three groups together. And the first one, the givers, they on the short run are actually on the last place, because their natural trait is to give people, to give their attention, give their time, give their resources. Like you said, when there is a last report, they're like, oh, don't worry, I will help you, let us do it together. And then you have the matchers. It's always this give and take. It's all okay, I give you something, but okay, by the way, are you having something for me? And then you have the takers, who actually are only taking. And funny enough, in the back to the comparison, at a short run, the takers outpace everybody. They basically, it seems like they are winning. So your ex-manager, who actually shouted like that, for sure there was a corner of people who said, what the heck? But there was for sure people like who actually might feel like, oh, I might lose my job, and they actually will silently support him, because he actually made you or said and step up maybe, and whatever. But on the long run, you obviously don't want that behavior in your company, because people, like we said, the generations that they will not put up with this. The old generation, they might put up with it because this is how they grew up in the hardship and dictatorship. Our generation wants freedom, and we also are similar to the Gen Z. Some might put up with it, but a lot of us will not put up with that. And givers, and that's again going to the example, actually outpace everybody. So if you're a manager who actually have a positive attitude and open mind and want to help your team to thrive, because I think the definition, honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, but the definition for you in the hotel, I remember back then going there, the fact that everything worked is because you were behind everything, because you were at the reception, because you motivated your team, you were actually knowing what's happening. And that's the success, that's the definition of a successful team. Or that's actually when the leader is not there, when the leader, or he is there, but if you're really successful, if you have a successful team, you know that the leader actually does something right. The team
Mm.
is autonomous perhaps without the leader down the road, but that's a lot of times when you take it to the extreme, you micromanage. This is not the right way.
Yeah, one little sort of extra bit that I add to that, it wasn't working so well because I was working there. It was more like that I realized what my team needed, and I had very different characters on my team. It was a small team, it was about 8, 9 people, but all very different, very strong characters. And I had to manage them very differently depending on who I was speaking with. And I delegated according to their own skill set and their personalities. So that's what I wanted to do. I was developing my successors from day one. So as soon as the team came together, I was looking at who can replace me and what are the elements that they can replace me, so that I can easily take a day off or a week off or a month off here, and I can trust my team knowing that things are in the right hands. But that doesn't work with in a simple delegation sort of a process that, okay, you do this, you do that. You need to emotionally, okay, understand what your team needs, understand how they react to responsibility. I had, for example, this girl that if I didn't give her more than what her job title meant, she felt undervalued. She felt she wasn't worthy enough to work there. So that was her own stuff to work through. But you need to understand what people need. Or I had another person on the team who was the opposite, that he felt that he was entitled to having all the extra tasks and the extra bonuses because he was doing it. So you need to really understand emotionally what drives your members, and depending on how big your team is, obviously you can't get through to every single person, but then get to the leaders of those teams, because then they can go to their own teams, etc. So figure out your key members, and I think that's what's important here, to really understand your key team members, either on your same level, above or below, doesn't matter, but know who those people are, know how they function, understand really how they function and what drives them, and how to communicate with them. Because if you understand that from an empathetic point of view, it not only creates an inspiring environment for them, but it takes the pressure off of you, okay? Because you can then easily get what you want in a way that feels genuine, because that's what you are doing. You know how to ask something. Like if I had to ask you something, I know exactly what I would need to do. I need to go straight to the point, not go like anything like that. I'm like, hey, Matteo, this is what I need. Can you help me? Yes or no? And I know that you would say yes, because I was direct with you. I was straight to the point. I wasn't coming up with this whole long story. Okay. So going back to this example that you mentioned with the hotel, that's why it was working really well. Yes, I was doing all of the different jobs as well to really understand what my team was struggling with, so I could improve the processes for them. But the biggest success there, I think, was that I knew what kind of work to delegate to which team member. I wasn't giving the administrative tasks to someone who hated admin. I gave it to someone who was more like feeling okay just to do things on their own. But then I gave the business development stuff to someone who was really hungry for success, who was hungry for that commission, that recognition, that thrill that comes with sales. Okay. So this is where I think emotional intelligence plays a really big part when it comes to really understanding what the other person needs, how can I communicate it to them, so it becomes a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah, word. I mean, it's. I like how you use the practical example on the team as well, understanding the different roles, and it shows also the depth of emotional intelligence. It's not just, obviously from self-regulation, and I think this is what we touched upon. This is where it starts, but it really moves from there. Understanding, okay, the different situations I need to manage, first myself, then maybe the team. How do I respond to situations and when I'm underslept? So understanding yourself, then maybe the social skills I need to apply, the different kind of dynamics in the team, who is like that, who's actually doesn't needs more help with the task, who needs to be more empowered and is more inspired by leading and by making an impact, and somebody else who's just incentivized and you just need to give them a little bigger raise. So I mean, it sounds all fancy on the paper, but in reality, sometimes then, the situation comes in as you don't hit your targets as a company, you cannot give bonus to everybody, and all these different things start to kind of cascade. But just to segue slowly towards the end of this conversation, what would you think about motivation? And then when it comes down to goals and personal goals, and perhaps even for the team goals, do you think it's important to motivate people, and how did you go about it in the past? Did you felt like, people can motivate themselves, or is it like something that needs to be done?
It's definitely easier when someone is there to help you and motivate you. There are, I think, very few kind of characters who can self motivate themselves, because it takes a lot of willpower. It takes a lot of determination and a ton of clarity for you to be able to self-motivate yourself efficiently. Yes, you can, like shake things up for you and raise your energy a little bit, but to constantly in the long term keep yourself motivated, it's best to have someone with you. So either it's a buddy, it's an accountant buddy, basically, or it could be your manager, it could be an external resource. There are so many other ways to keep yourself motivated. It is super important. And if someone is in that leading position, that they have a team that needs to be motivated, go back to the previous examples, understand how your team needs to be motivated, understand what is that collective drive as a team, because they're going to have something in common. And one thing that I used to love doing with my teams across multiple companies was that I brought them together to come up with that motivation. So we established it together instead of me giving them like, this is the target, like let's create it together. Because when we created it together, I stretched them, of course. They come up with a target like, yeah, let's push it a bit more, so that it also obviously is in line with the business KPIs. But when it came down to the team, we always did it together, so they felt involved first of all. And once you feel like that you are part of something, you more likely want that to work out, okay? Because you also feel like, this is my baby, I don't want this to fall apart. If that means hitting your quarterly targets and you build it with the rest of your colleagues, you are more likely to motivate each other without your manager being around, because you were part of that process, because you came up with your incentive. I did this thing as well. I asked everyone, like, tell me, like, if you hit your quarterly target, what bonus do you want? You can choose. And funny enough, only about 10% of them said money. You would be surprised. And the founders of the company, that's all they wanted to do, just cash incentive for bonuses. And I said, no, let me go and check with the team to really understand what they want, because I always know that that's usually what happens, that people are not always motivated by extra cash. It's great, but a lot of characters out there that prefer something else. So a lot of them wanted travel, a lot of them wanted extra days off, a lot of them wanted, I don't know, to be taken out for a fancy restaurant by management. So they felt like they are part of the management team. So everyone is being motivated by different sort of things. And if you talk to your team and really understand what they need, that's how you can really push that motivation button. Because if I know that, let's say, Tony over there wants to be motivated because he wants a promotion, he's been working here so hard, he wants a change in his title. So I know that's part of his development plan. That's going to motivate him more. What am I going to say to him when he's having a bad day? Hey, Tony, how's that senior management position going? Boom, right? You remind him of why he needs to hit his target. If I tell him, like, how is your daily quota? He's not going to care. He doesn't care about the company. Nobody cares about the company unless it's your company. Harsh truth. Even your most loyal employees, they don't care. They care about the team, they care about their job, yeah, but not the company. Never the company. They're not there to make your company successful. They feel like that they belong to somewhere. They feel like they are doing something meaningful for the customers, for their people. But if you just want to motivate them with the company KPIs, well, boring. Okay? Don't do it. Figure out what they want and motivate them that way. And find out how they need to be motivated. So some people prefer that good old sort of sports coaching style. Like, come on, 5 more, you can do it. Okay? A lot of people won't even respond to that. You will chase them away. They need a softer, nurturing approach. Like, hey, what can I do for you to make sure you achieve that goal? Is there anything you need to get to that target? So figure out your characters. And again, it comes down to emotional intelligence to really know this. And just going back to one last point before we wrap things up, that I know that if you have a big team, you can't do this for every single individual. If that is the case, again, focus on the key members, focus on the successors that are able then to do the same for you, so they can do the work and they can do these conversations with the rest of the teams and they feed the information back to you. Because as a leader, you might not have time to speak to 500 employees, okay, or 50,000 employees, depending on the company size, but you can speak to 3 senior leaders that can speak to 5 team leaders, and so on and so forth. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really like it how you broke it down. It's not an easy topic, and you need to. This is why I was saying you need to know yourself quite well to determine how other people think. And this is all, I think you mentioned it before we started the recording, a lot of this psychology comes into play, and I call it just be the human kind of student of the humans, really understand what makes them tick, what are the behaviors, and that comes a lot to understanding yourself. If you are caring, and that's the word I was looking for when you were kind of dropping these bombs along the way, I thought, yeah, that's caring. It's really just being there for others and doing your best along the way. And I mean, motivation, it's a huge topic. It comes. I also like how you just gave the example between the sports coaching and the softer nurturing approach. It's a it's a huge topic as well when it comes down to bigger corporate companies, and also now where you're going. Obviously, the dynamics, and you know it from the bank, it's completely different. And you would be tempted to say that people who are workaholics, and I know in the countries I've lived at and companies, that I met a lot of people, myself included, who thought this is my company, and I was treating it like that. But then if I was really honestly asking myself, what's really going on? It's not that. It's fear, it's running away from things, it's really ego. It's like, oh, I need to money because I want to purchase that. So
For the title.
for a title, absolutely, absolutely, because it's the recognition, I'm somebody, I am this, I am that, and I'm better than you, and that's already, you see ego coming into play. So I love it. I just, every time we talk, I get shivers throughout the conversations, and today was no other day. So Timmy, I want to really thank you for your time as well. And I know you have really ambitious vision, and that always motivates me. It's every time nice to see you. You're, as I said before, on my vision board, next to the, one time when we met at the airport, you might remember you were drinking a glass of wine. So hopefully we will be able to repeat that before you fly off somewhere too far for me to
Yes.
handle the calls in the night. Um, I just want to share here as well with people a little QR code, and that's on the wrong side. Actually, let me see if I can do it like this. That's for me, and let me do it like this. This is for you. So, guys, I wanted to say, let me know if it's correct, timmyoroth.com. So, if you scan this QR code, hopefully, well, you would have to test it yourself, but I tested before, it seemed to work. You should go and navigate directly to Timmy's website. So I know you might be also shifting maybe the websites in the future, but anyways, for now, I think this is where people can find the impact. And
But sorry, I have 4 websites. Which one is it that you are sending people
I
to?
think that timmyoroth.com.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I can share all different
If,
website if you want.
yeah, in case if people want more like
Marketing.
marketing related stuff, it's best to go to Connect One Marketing.
Okay, let me just.
You can leave it as is. I'm just not very active on the main one, but if they go to connectonemarketing.com, it's probably they're gonna get a lot more juicier content.
Yeah.
To learn more about the psychology behind
I'm
marketing.
changing the link here. Just bear a second with me, and it should be changed now. One more time. So if you scan this, that should be the Connect One Marketing for Timmy. Thank you for the correction. I know you're the lady of many faces and many
Many faces. I'm not sure if I want that title. It reminds me of that. What was it from
Joker.
Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Character.
No, I meant it in a sense of a lot of responsibilities, a lot of more projects that you have, and visions.
Just joking.
So connect with Timmy. I hope you will do that. I'm every time inspired. Probably this will be published as well in a setting where you can listen to or watch. If you're interested to chat with me, definitely you can. I'm talking a lot about being authentic, and similar to what Timmy was talking about, some type of programs where people can come to. Perhaps even you could see Timmy there once in a while, depending on where she's flying around the world and what's her availability. But please reach out as well, share some comments and ideas if you need, to chat with Timmy. I think that's smart. I definitely have once in a while people that I try to send to Timmy's direction. So it's always nice to see your positivity and seeing how he's slowly building your own way and your own impact. It's just beautiful. I know this is not an easy does it. Of course, you live in Spain, but it's not an easy thing to do over a period of time, because you obviously challenge yourself with bigger things and doing maybe in a new way. But again, I want to thank you. Any parting thoughts from your side?
Just want to say a major thank you as well for having me here and allowing me to pick this topic, because that was a slightly different plan of action initially, and I love that flexibility around you, that you really know how to listen, and that's the empathy there and the emotional intelligence. You are walking the walk, because I mentioned that this is the topic that gets me really excited, and that's something I would love to talk about more of, and you just rolled with it. So thank you for that, and it's just a good example for others as well to know that don't get so stuck on your on your vision. if you can if you can make some flexible sort of pivots along the way. So thank you again for doing this, for your listeners, your readers, your watchers, however they are consuming this. And I actually loved talking about this topic, so I hope it was helpful for your audience as well.
It will be, and it is helpful, absolutely. And I think we all need to listen to this and re-listen some bits and pieces, myself included, because this is what I feel nowadays is the big thing. We consume so much content, and it's just one ear in, another ear out, and we need to positively every day engage into these with these topics and with one another to remind ourselves, hey, we got this and we are not alone, because obviously as a team, and this was today's topic, oftentimes you are doing too much by yourself. So I encourage you, as well as a parting thought, reach out to the three of friends you haven't spoken to for the last, maybe couple of years. Just have a chat with them and build your own growth friends, because your maintenance and your old friends will not get you where you're going. It's really these conversations that we have and keep having with Timmy every couple months to remind ourselves, hey, how are you doing? Are you, handling the pressure well? What are you up to? Do you need help somewhere? So remember, the success is built sometimes, often in private, and then rewarded in public, but it's really done in groups. It's done with other people. So stay well, stay
Beautiful
healthy.
parting words.
What?
Beautiful parting words.
Exactly. I hope that you guys gonna also implement that. It's always nice to hear, but we need to do more. So I'm gonna keep a close eye on your social impact, Timmy. Really keep sending the positive vibes in the world. It's really impressive, and thank you again. So
Thank you for having
stay
me.
safe, guys. Until the next time. Bye bye.